welcome to another edition of the Traction Reaction Podcast. I'm Steve Zautke, along with my buddy Jeff Orloski. How you doing today, Jeff?
Oh, fantastic, Steve. Good to see you, buddy.
NASCAR weekend, of course, and double header with IndyCar at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I said this thing was going to be huge when they announced it last year. Supposed to be on July 4th weekend. Unfortunately, that did not happen with 100% fans, but I thought it was a good turnout for what they've had over the last few years. One thing right away, I just wondering if you caught this. They're not calling it the Brickyard. Now it's the Verizon 200 at the Brickyard. I was just wondering if you kind of noticed that at all. Did it have a different vibe back when it started back in 95, 94?
Well, back in 94, 95, it was huge. And it was pretty much everybody, no matter if you were a huge NASCAR fan or not, was looking forward to it. Couldn't wait to see stock cars on the track at Indianapolis. Now, Jesus, it was just, to me, it was like, oh, great, another road course. Here we go again. It's the same crap I saw the week before at Watkins Glen. It's the same crap I've seen, 47 times already this year. It does not have the special feel that the Brickyard 400 used to have. Brickyard 400, it had that amazing stuff, but it didn't last that long because the racing turned out to be crap year after year after year when they started running there, on all the time. And it got really boring really quick. Well, but no, did it feel special at all? No, not to me.
And this is one of these races, there's a part of me that says, wow, that really sucked. But then again, you're kind of happy who won. You might be happy who didn't win. What was the time of the race? The time of the race,
4 days.
Yeah, 3 hours and 21 minutes, basically, for a 231 mile race. Incredibly too long. There was people bitching about, they went away at 4 o'clock Central Time. Well, NBC is only going to hold a race for so long. And I think the powers that be in New York were like, come on. I mean, you have some responsibility in getting the race done in that time. I thought it was kind of cool how Allmendinger won, I guess that evilness in me. I guess the elephant in the room is, did Chase Briscoe know he was being penalized when he took out Denny Hamlin?
He says he didn't, and how can we dispute otherwise? Now, it was nice to see, right after him and Denny spoke after the race, Chase took full responsibility for what he did in completely trashing Hamlin and ruining his day and basically taking the win away from him and everything like that. So,
he went to the Carl Edwards school of, oh, golly gee, did I do that?
Yeah, he did, but he's a rookie. So you got to cut them a little bit more slack. If it was Tony Stewart, there wouldn't be a question. If that was Kyle Busch that did it, you would say, 99.999% of the people in the world would say that was on purpose. I cut Chase Briscoe a little bit of slack because he's so young, because he hasn't been there and hasn't done this for a very long time. The fact that he said he didn't know he was going to be penalized is kind of sketchy, because you take a shortcut like that, boy, you're going to have to pay a penalty. So, it was a little bit sketchy, but I do believe Chase.
I told Susan, my wife at the time, I said, hey, that's one of those cases where if I ain't going to win, he ain't going to win. Seconds after it happened, so it certainly had that feel. I don't like the idea, the officials, we're going to look into whether, whether Briscoe knew. Why? You guys have been like hands off all this crap. This crap's been going on for 10 years. That Saturday night short track crap, taking guys out. I know I just said I thought it was kind of cool Chase Briscoe did that. I always said going for your first win, you have that exemption, and this is a case where, well, yeah, I guess he used it up taking the other guy out. NASCAR is let them do this now. Are they going to start changing it? If it's fine. If they're gonna penalize Briscoe or do something, then they have to do it from now on.
This is yet another example this season. I don't recognize this version of NASCAR. What is NASCAR now? After Dale died, NASCAR was all about driver safety. Everything was about safety. You sat there, we had a couple years of the car of tomorrow, which was complete horse crap, awful racing. Every 5 laps in, it'd put you to sleep because of driver safety and all that stuff. Now you go into this season and you sit there and you run a track at Bristol with dirt where no one can see because the dust is so bad. You run, I think it was at Coda, where the rain is so bad that no one can see. And you got guys like Kevin Harvick just straight plowing into the rear end of people because they can't even see him on the track. You've got this, you had Atlanta where the track came apart and you had to red flag the race to fix the track. Oh, wait, that happened again this week. It's just, I don't understand exactly what NASCAR is trying to do. And, it was weird. And we both said this, for the last few years. It's been strange, probably 4 out of the last 5 years, because NASCAR has not stepped on their toes and made the idiot decisions that they usually make. Most of the decisions that they made have been the right ones. But then this season happens and it's like, it's a complete free for all. If your drivers can't even see where they're going, what the hell are you doing? And so it's just, I don't understand where they're trying to go or what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, it earlier from this morning, it said NASCAR Senior Vice President of Competition Scott Miller addressed the media after turning them, said they're going to view the audio. They're going to review the number 14 radio communication after the incident. Okay, you're gonna review it, but you better not do anything because this stuff's been happening. I don't know if they're trying to deflect from the curbing issue, but I can tell you that there was a lot of conversations, I'm sure, with NASCAR and Indy and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway about that fiasco. And we used to say this on last year's show with Dennis Michelson. Dennis Michelson and I were always bitching about that splitter. How guy goes through the grass. It ends his race, which is ridiculous. Taking all that air from underneath the car is they're going to go to Michigan next week because it's going to be a snoozer with this package because there's no air underneath there, and the cars just cannot draft up to the rears and execute passes. And hopefully this is stuff that's going to be changed next year with the new car. With that splitter, I mean, that was a case where Indy cars were going over that and they weren't having the issue. You got these big stock cars the splitters were actually getting underneath that and pulling up. Eventually it's going to come up. Metal fatigue will and physics will always cause that to break eventually.
Well, I leave the science to you because I'm not smart enough to know about metal fatigue unless you're talking about heavy metal, and there's no fatigue in that. But I will tell you, it was another embarrassing week for the sport. You sit there, you're right at the end of, a semi-entertaining race, and then the track comes apart. I don't understand how the people that planned that track out, it was kind of like that they wanted to run a stock car road course race, but they also wanted to steal a little bit of Robbie Gordon and the super trucks, because they threw a freaking ramp in the middle of the damn track. And, it was crazy. Like you said, I'm very happy AJ Allmendinger took the checker flag. I'm so happy for that guy. Every time you see him in victory lane, you see the pure joy and what it means to him. to win. It's not like, it's different than like when he wins, or, if, Denny Hamlin would have won and just, oh yeah, another trophy, rah, rah, rah.
Exactly.
It's just, it feels good when AJ wins, and he's an easy guy to root for.
It's an authentic victory. You can see the pure emotion. He understands what Indianapolis is. It's the complete opposite of when a Cup guy wins in Xfinity. And here you got an Xfinity guy basically winning in Cup. And you have Kaulig Racing, which, boy, NASCAR better be very, very nice to them, because they're pumping in a lot of money in an Xfinity series. They're making the jump to Cup. NASCAR, for all the issues they've had, they got a couple of teams that are stepping up, and exactly what this series has needed, because you're always worried about what are the Jack Roush's going to do, the Mr. Hendricks and Penske, and all these guys are in their late 70s, pushing 80. Anything can happen. So it's a great story, this young team and what they've been able to accomplish. They've won 10 Xfinity races, and this was their 11th NASCAR race, their first in Cup. They only have 2. I told Susan, I said, I believe they only have 2 Cup cars. They have a road course car and a super speedway car. Allmendinger's run well on the road courses, which you expect, but he hasn't been able to put it all together. And you got the calamity that happened yesterday when Ryan Blaney, interesting, him finishing second for Penske. So Penske wins the IndyCar race. They won the Xfinity race with Austin Cindric, which is a cool deal, because Austin Cindric is the grandson of Jim Truman, who won the race as a car owner with Bobby Rahal in 1986. So that's a cool story. He certainly didn't seem happy about that, finishing second yesterday, did he?
Well, it was crazy, because about halfway through that race, I was trying to think of, some people that, to me, Ryan Blaney's had a disappointing season. Ryan Blaney's not up there week after week fighting for wins. He's not up there week after week in the top 5. And I think Ryan Blaney has good enough equipment that he should be able to be up there and compete. Now, this year has kind of been a little bit of an outlier because of the Hendrick dominance that we've seen for most of the season, but it's still not really a complete excuse. He's still got to step up and get the job done. So for him to sit there and bring it home second, if I was Ryan Blaney, I'd be over the moon, because compared to where he ran most of the day, whoa, that was a complete reversal of fortune for him.
It'll be interesting to see with Keselowski moving on, Austin Cindric moving up, Ryan Blaney fits in with that team next year, and does it show some improvement? Because you have to wonder, that team, the 12 car, has definitely underperformed. There's been some talk of the crew maybe has let them down a bit, so it'll be interesting to see once the season's over, do they switch her on the crews? Do they try and even the cars out? Kyle Larson, of course, finishing third. We're going to talk about Kyle Larson again in just a moment. Chase Elliott, another top 5, but show favorite Matt DiBenedetto finishing 5th. He was a little disappointed. Of course, he was happy with a top 5, but there's a guy, he doesn't know where he's going to race next year. What's your opinion on him, how he's been doing? And also, the guy who finished 6th, Kurt Busch, who a lot of people think he's outperforming what that car can do.
Well, yeah, of course he is, and that's what Kurt Busch does. He's got a lower funded team, and he's not in the best equipment, but he is such a talented wheelman with an awful nickname. It's a great nickname, but it completely doesn't fit him, to me personally. When I see Kurt Busch, outlaw is about the last thing I think of. But milk toast. He's not like white bread like Kyle Edwards was, but or Carl Edwards. But it sure as hell ain't an outlaw. You know what I'm saying? He is outperforming, and that's why, Kurt Busch right now is going to be the top free agent. We all hope that Matty D sits there and gets a job in the Cup Series next year. I think he will. You know,
Or should he?
just
Or should he take a step back? Should he go back to the Xfinity? Do what Nemechek's doing in trucks. You know what? I'm going to step back in series. I'm going to kick some ass and just recharge my career and then come back.
Not a chance in hell, because you're taking a risk of never getting another opportunity to get back up there. You know, lie, cheat, and steal to keep yourself that Cup ride, man, because the payday is night and day different, and you never know if your time is going to pass. And say he goes down to Xfinity, where he should be able to dominate and rejuvenate his career and all that kind of stuff, and say he's got, just an awful, horrible, bad luck season, 15, 20 parts failures and all this kind of crap. And then all of a sudden he's swept under the rug and everybody forgets about him. No way in hell. If I'm Matty D, I'm fighting to stay up in that Cup car.
It'll be interesting to see where he goes, because, you look at Eric Jones. Here's a guy, Joe Gibbs Racing. He was on the fast track. Really no fault of his own. Maybe I guess you can say he underperformed somewhat when he got the Cup. He's in a 43 car. He finished 7th. And let's face it, a lot of that was because of attrition. And there's also a team that's hanging on for dear life. Whenever you see Petty's Garage on that car for the weekend, that means they don't really have sponsorship, don't they?
I love seeing that 43 out there. But, it was a perfect situation for them where 3/4 of the field got wrecked out. And that's the only way he barely squeaked into the top 10. That's what they need. And it's sad. And it's, what's happened with Petty is sad. And I don't know what to say, but I love seeing the 43 still out there on the track fighting.
Yeah, Justin Haley too, getting the top 10 in there. But then you look at some of the guys who maybe had an opportunity but couldn't. I mean, Josh Bilicki, top 20, that's his best finish in Cup, finishing 18th. Maybe he could have taken a couple other spots. Who knows? Quinn Hoff, who's everybody's favorite kicking bad. Now, why Bubba Wallace totally cut that chicane on that one restart? Did you see that? Nobody said anything about it. Bubba just cuts the chicane, which in hindsight was the smart thing to do. He avoided all the calamity. The officials, and especially the people at the Speedway, don't want to see those cars going in those tire barriers faster than they think they can handle.
Yeah, but it was crazy because in the post-race interviews with the drivers, they were saying that they were running through there pretty much wide open to begin with anyway. So what's the point of having it if it's not slowing these guys down or not slowing them down?
Well, that's why they put in those turtles, though, because they knew that coming in, that when they were running, when they did the testing, and they put those turtles on the outside to punish those guys to make sure so they wouldn't cut that chicane any further.
Okay, but this again brings up the whole thing with NASCAR. Why do you have the yellow line at Daytona and Talladega? Protect these guys from themselves. So you think throwing a ramp out there in the middle of the track to slow these guys down is going to work? Hell no. They're going to go over it, and they're going to go over it a hell of a lot more than one time. And it's going to cause a lot of wrecked race cars, a lot of damage, and you take a lot of shots of these guys getting hurt. Thank God that hit by Joey Logano. He got out and he said, that it wasn't that bad because the tires ate most of the force, and because that was ugly. And I did like that whole thing with the red flag. They had about 150 guys out there stacking tires. So, and I bet every single one of them is sitting there, A, at home sore today, and B, telling themselves, oh, I'm going to request to work a different section of the track next year.
Those things are not fun to wrestle with. Here's a quote. As we work through putting the track together for the Xfinity Series for last year's race, there was a big ask from the drivers to have something back there because that section was just way too fast. There was that grass, and then going into turn 7, they would have been running maybe 15 to 20 miles faster, said Miller. He said we weren't going to sign them up for that. The other one had to stay, talking about that turtle on the driver's left. That was the only way we were going to get them to get back to racing on Sunday. So that's why they made the adjustments they did. The curbing that delaminated is the same style of curbing that we've had since we redid the road course in 2014. So those curbs have been place repaired, and we never really had an issue with those curbs at all. Said Doug Bowles, he's the president of IMS. We looked at that curb between every session, looked at it at night, in the morning. There's no indication today that there is really anything wrong with that curbing. So it was a bit of a surprise for us when the race had started and we were having issues with it. Well, the issue is not the curbing. The issue is that valance, which is just causes all sorts of problems. And I'm really surprised. Well, I know why. The engineers like it, because it does what it does. From the driver's point of view, we've seen this at especially on the 1.5 tracks. You know, somebody gets pushed into the grass, there's a good chance if you hit it just right, your day is going to be done. And that thing is so low, it has a tendency to dig underneath that thing and pop it up. Whereas the Indy cars run almost on the flat on the ground, but that's more on the tub. The front of the Indy car is not hitting that thing like the Cup cars. And supposedly the Xfinity cars have stops, so they cannot run as low. So maybe that's something NASCAR needs to look at even before the end of the year.
Well, they got to figure something out, because it was another joke. And like I said earlier, you know, it's just another bad look for NASCAR. You know, you can't sit there and go and call this a special race and all that, and then have the track come apart because of the way it was designed. You can't have guys go airborne off one of the turtles because of the way it was designed. And I don't know about you, Steve, but you remember the hype and how awesome the first handful of Brickyard 400s were.
Oh, see, I was down there. It was huge.
Oh, it was awesome. It was awesome. But after watching the race yesterday, and I feel bad for AJ, but it feels a little silly watching these guys kiss the bricks.
Yeah. Well, I can see even after the Xfinity series, but I was down there. I worked with SVRA, Sports Car Vintage Racing Association. We had events down there at Indy. It is still a special place. Even when you were running vintage cars, we had guys that would do that, and we've had ceremonies. We did the winner's circle, and I mean, it was special for those guys. Especially when we ran the Pro-Am cars, which was pretty much a bit of the predecessor to with the SRX series, with a lot of the same guys, Willie T and Bobby Labonte, and a lot of those guys ran that series. They ran them at Virginia, the road course there, but we also ran them at Indianapolis. Willie T won a class at Indy. That was really special for him. I mean, he was just so pumped up that he won. Bob Lazier even won one year, won his class, who unfortunately passed away from COVID. And he's a guy that drove at Indianapolis, in the 80s, and never, achieved anything close to success, even though his son won it. Buddy Lazier won it in 1996. It was really special for those guys. And anytime you can win in Indianapolis, it's special. So, and Cindric, I know it's special for him winning on Saturday at the road course. That was his 13th victory in the Xfinity series. And then to come back the following day, finished 9th in the Cup race. That's a kid who's really coming along. Once again, you talk about Sam Mayer. Oh yeah, he's only there because his dad is writing the checks. Yeah, his dad is writing checks, but he's delivering. Same thing with Ty Gibbs. Here's a kid. Oh, Joe Gibbs' grandson, but Ty Gibbs is a talented driver. I think his dad ran truck series, couldn't drive worth a crap, and was told, you better, I don't think it was JD. Unfortunately, JD is the one that passed. I'm not sure it was JD. But anyways, it was kind of like, what, I think we're going to need you in the office. But Austin Cindric is another one, and kind of went into stock car racing because of his size. He's a big boy. He's a pretty tall kid. I mean, the kid can drive. So let's see, what do we got? Oh yeah, Josh Berry news. Josh Berry, also another one who you and I like. It's a feel-good story. This is a kid that I guess if you want to call him a protege of Junior or not, Jeff, but he's a kid he met online. Dale Jr. met him online. He's a late model kid. Here's a guy. He's 30 years old, which for some people is old, but he brought along guys like William Byron in his through his program, and he got the attention of Dale Jr. He was able to fill in for a couple of races last year and had some success. And with the Sam Mayer situation this year, a lot of the big tracks still use 18 years old. So Josh Berry filled in. Well, the good news is, Jeff,
every time Josh Berry got behind the wheel, he did better than what he was expected. And obviously he got that win at Martinsville, just absolutely huge for him. Could not be, happier for Josh Berry. The kid has put in his time. He's put in the work. I hope that he's not, Dale Jr.'s not his mentor or whatever, because I hope that the kid has more success than Dale Jr. did. Once he gets to the Cup level, obviously Jr. had a hell of a lot of success. He had a bunch of success throughout his career, but I'm not the biggest Jr. fan, even though I'm sort of changing my tune. I've been listening.
I love Junior.
I've been listening to him a lot on the podcast and stuff, and they talk too much about Senior on there, but he's pretty entertaining. But now the thing for Josh Berry is you got to deliver.
Yeah.
And it's great when he was kind of he was known. Everybody knew him, all the people in the industry, they sat there and, I listened to a couple, NASCAR podcasts and stuff, and, they'd rave about him every single week and how good he was and everything like that. But, you're right. He is old. He does not bring funding. So it's go time, baby. You got to get it done, and you got to get it done week in, week out.
They were able to put together a package for him that works out for not only Earnhardt or for Junior Motorsports, but also Josh Berry. I'm pretty happy for that.
Let me make a prediction here, Steve. We just talked about Ty Gibbs. We just talked about Josh Berry. And then who else did we just talk about? Cindric. I guarantee all three of those guys end up with more wins than the grandsons of Richard Childress when all is said and done.
Well, we've already seen that Tyler Reddick is the best driver on that team, so that shouldn't be that big of a surprise. Now you lost my train of thought.
Sorry. I had to get a shot at Austin.
Ryan Newman. Yeah, Ryan Newman is uncertain of his 22 plans. I always liked Ryan Newman, especially since he was a USAC guy and that, but there's a point of me that kind of wants him to retire. Now, I let's be honest, he did go through a divorce. So he could be rebuilding his nest egg. Yeah, his nest egg a bit on that. So that could be part of the reason why he wants to drive. But I don't know. Is it time?
To me, there's a big difference between Ryan Newman now and Kurt Busch now. Kurt Busch now can sit there and take your car for Steve Zautke Racing, and you're mired in 25th and you can't figure out how to get any better performance. You hire Kurt Busch for a year, he'll get you going 15
right.
13th to 16th place on a week in, week out basis, and tell you what you need to do to sneak some more speed out of that sucker. Ryan Newman probably can too, like you said, he is an engineer. I believe he's a freaking rocket scientist. But it just, you get behind the wheel, and I don't want to blame it on the injury or whatever, because obviously that would have scared the hell out of anybody. But, I would not be surprised if he was just a little bit gun shy. Obviously he's in bad equipment. So no, it's time for Newman to say sayonara and check out.
Yeah, I want to talk about Robin Miller, of course. Robin Miller has been a friend of the show, was when we were on the radio. Was on the show quite a few times. He's been involved with his lunches with some of the old drivers down in Indianapolis. I wouldn't call Robin Miller a best friend or anything, but he's a very good acquaintance. I think he's one of the guys, you might not always agree with him, but he is one of those situations where you knew where he stood. He wrote a column. He's going through some health issues too. Not very good at this point, but we're just, we're wishing the best for Robin. He did write something though. He was at the Speedway this weekend, and the headline is IndyCar must do whatever it takes to get Kyle Larson into the 2022 Indy 500. Kyle Larson, of course, who finished, was a third at the Brickyard, the Verizon 200 at the Brickyard, won the Knoxville Nationals last week on Saturday night. Yeah. Well, here, I'll just read what he says here. Larson is in the midst of one of the greatest seasons ever, having won 5 Cup races, including the $1 million All-Star race and the Coke 600. He's won the Chili Bowl, the Kings Royal, the Prairie Dirt Nationals, and last Saturday night's Knoxville Nationals. He's the top of the NASCAR Cup point standings. He's led 1,496 laps, 700 more than his closest competitor. He dominated the race this weekend until late caution scrambled the field. He still wound up third. He's won in midget sprints with or without wings, late model stock cars, and even modifieds. And with his because of his bow tie and Chevrolet and Hendrick Motorsports connections, Hendrick would be a great landing spot putting together, whether it's a team, they have the engineering behind it, they could do it, or being affiliated with a team, whether it's Ed Carpenter Racing or whoever. But yes, I totally agree. They need to open up all avenues to get this thing done. It's what IndyCar needs. It's what the Indianapolis 500 needs. It also is what NASCAR needs. And I think we saw from this weekend, Jeff, with NASCAR and IndyCar being at the same track, same weekend, motorsports needs to push away on this. Well, that's what they do. It's what F1 does. Everybody needs to get together to save motorsports, and motorsports needs to do what they can to get butts in the seats and to get the kids interested, whatever it takes, Jeff.
Yes, and best wishes to Robin. I hope for a speedy recovery, and I hope that guy lives forever. I love his stuff. I don't run in the highfalutin circles you do, so I've never met him, don't know him personally. But you read his articles and stuff, you always know where he stands, and he feels like a friend, kind of. So best wishes to him. As far as what he wrote, no shit. If you're IndyCar, it's a win-win. You sit there, you're going to sell more tickets. You're going to get more interest on a race that already, is going to sell out and have, just ungodly coverage anyway around it. So it does nothing but help. What I would love to see is if with this, recent partnership or whatever this weekend with NASCAR and IndyCar, if they allow this to happen, I would love to see Tony Stewart, Kyle Busch. I'd love to see their heads just explode, because these guys, they wanted to do the double for so damn long. And, for whatever reason, it was pretty much, I blame NASCAR on that, because, you can't start the Indy 500 with the start time at like 6 a.m. on the West Coast, so these guys could sit there and make the drivers meeting and get back for the Coke 600. So I blame NASCAR on the fact that, they kind of blocked most, all these guys for the most part, except, a couple handoffs. But, I want to see their heads explode. I want to see their reaction. It would be great to see. My only concern, and it's not as big of a concern. We all knew that Jimmy Johnson was going to go to IndyCar and suck. And that's exactly what he's done. Jimmy Johnson has, if I can be honest, he's embarrassed himself.
I wouldn't go that far. He's not that far off the pace.
Where's he finishing?
I understand that. It's a very competitive field, though. It's not like the old days where you only had, 6 or 7 cars that could win a race. I mean, he's only a third of a second off the pace, that's all. You're not talking very much. And that's how tight the rate, that's how tight it is. I mean, we're talking about in the 80s, you'd sometimes have a 3 or 4 second gap across the field. And Ed Carpenter improved his road racing where he was only a third or a half a second off the guys in front of him. And he said, well, I got to retire now because that's not good enough. Well, so when somebody like Jimmy Johnson, who doesn't have the testing like they used to, I mean, look at Nigel Mansell. Nigel Mansell came over in the early 90s after winning the world championship. He drove that car for almost 2 months straight before he got to Phoenix, where he had the accident. But I'm talking about by the time he got to Long Beach and back into the Speedway in May, he had probably 2,000 miles of testing behind him. Call me a Jimmy Johnson apologist, whatever. It's fine.
For the 88-time NASCAR champion, you'd expect him not to finish, second to last week after week. For the sport, though. Okay.
It's good for his sport. He brought in a very powerful sponsor. He's got more followers than probably half the field combined on Twitter and all that. So, I mean, that way it's raising the visibility of IndyCar having them in the series.
Back to Larson, I hope he gets to do it. I would love to see it. We've talked, ever since the suspension and even before that about how much talent he has and how much, we both think of him and what he can do behind the wheel. I will tell you after this season, and, I'm getting a little tired of him now. I wish he would stop taking all the checker flags. It kind of bores it down for me. I'm not a Hendrick guy. I don't root for Team Chevy anymore since Harvick switched over. So but I would love to see it. I think he could sit there and be competitive, even with limited practice, as long as he's got a semi-decent car. I think he could put that thing in, top 10.
Circling back to Kyle Larson and what he's been able to do this year, he won $175,000 at the Kings Royal and $176,000 at the Knoxville Nationals.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That ain't bad, man. And dude, I'll tell you, I unfortunately I was in the hospital and I couldn't watch the Nationals on TV, but seeing the highlights from it and some of them shots, how wonderful it is to see a full house.
Yeah.
Just people packed, watching racing, everybody's on their feet, screaming, cheering, going nuts. What a beautiful sight. And I think I'm gonna head down there next year and check it out for myself.
Let's go.
I'm in, man. I'm in. I know it's not, not a far drive. So, a couple weeks ago, I went on a family trip to South Dakota. You want to talk about a far drive? That's one.
Did you? Jeff, a lot of fun. We got Michigan coming up. Larson, right?
Yeah, of course. Larson, Byron, Elliott, Bowman.
Is it one last question? Would it be a bad thing if Larson didn't win the championship at this point?
Hell no. You're asking the wrong guy for that. I watched Kevin Harvick won 127 races last year and not win the title, not even make the Final Four at Miami. So don't sit there and ask me to cry Kyle Larson a river if he doesn't win the title this year. That ain't gonna.
Okay. Point taken. All right, Jeff. Appreciate you guys listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe all the videos on YouTube and also through BuzzFeed or Buzzsprout, and whether you're listening on YouTube or on the podcast format. We certainly appreciate what you do. And Jeff, appreciate it. We'll talk to you next time.
Great time, Steve. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, buddy.